Pure Wealth Partners out of McMinnville in Warren County, and we've worked with you now for a couple of years. And CK is an amazing wealth advisor. Most of our viewers seeing this know us here in the Cookeville area. You know that we're a trust and estate firm, and of course we work with a lot of different independent advisory firms. And one of the things that I love about Pure Wealth Partners is honestly the independent nature of it. That's one thing that you guys bring to the table, and the service is very different. Just to be direct. But those that don't know you, CK, tell us a little bit more about what got you into wealth management. Before we get to Pure Wealth, like what was the background in your career?
So funny enough, my degree is actually biology. I thought I wanted to go into the medical field. But
as we all do.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But I waited until my last year of college to actually work in the medical field and decided that wasn't the best fit. Always loved science, numbers, that type of thing. And then I got into the banking side with Wells Fargo and worked in many different departments and found that the financial advising path is the one that I wanted to take, just to work one-on-one with clients. So.
And really, you're one of the only advisors that I've worked with that comes from that big banking background. How has that informed how how now you work in a small business with individuals, with consumers in the marketplace as an advisor one-on-one?
Yeah, so it was a great
little bit of a difference
experience.
there.
Yeah, it is. So it's different coming from a large company like that. You kind of learn a certain way to do things. They put a lot of money into marketing and studying things and seeing what's the best way or the best system, and then that kind of is the system. So coming from that to independent, you've learned so much, and you can take the things that you think work best, and then you can build off of that, but then you can create your own ways to do things. So it doesn't have to be so cookie cutter, I guess, scripted. You can just be a little more one-on-one and personal in the way that you provide services.
And part of that, again, you've seen how really top-notch research and things that's done through a place like Wells Fargo or Chase Bank or whatever it is, a really large corporation that's very, very good. And so it's opened your mind up to some unique opportunities to solve problems, I guess, for an individual.
Absolutely, because you learn so much from that, and you see so much, especially working in different sides of that. And so you can take that knowledge and you use it, but you can also build on it and make it just more genuine, I guess. And you can really focus on the way that you want to work with clients one-on-one and building those relationships. And it becomes a little less number focused and a little more personalized.
Which, I mean, for me too, not working in a big law firm, which we certainly could have. I think when we started our careers, and we didn't, that would have been an interesting experience. But I for sure feel so blessed because some of our counterparts that are, at a Baker Donaldson or something, I know what their day-to-day looks like, and that can really become a little numbing after a while. Being able to solve problems, is very fulfilling, for individuals. When did you get into, wealth management at the individual level?
So it was during COVID, 2020, June of 2020.
I know we've been through this. I didn't know it was 2020.
Yeah, it was 2020 is when I decided to go independent. And so, of course, timing was a little off, I guess, but it actually worked out great. We were able to sit down and provide guidance for people who maybe some of the larger firms weren't, were closed down and you couldn't get into. And so we were able to open in 2020 and move through COVID. And it's actually been great, but it was definitely a leap.
Yeah, and it's been an awesome success story. You guys are doing so great there. One of the coolest buildings, if you've not ever been to McMinnville, Pure Wealth Partners, what you all have done with that and the story around that is awesome. Yeah. I know you're from McMinnville. That's your hometown.
Actually, Sparta.
Sparta is the hometown.
I'm a White County girl, but I've been in McMinnville since moving back to Tennessee. So.
Okay, yeah, but you're from the Upper Cumberland Plateau. One of the things that is really impressive with you, and we do our best to be engaged in the community. We can always do more, but you do so much. What are some of the community organizations and involvement that you've been in since 2020,
Yeah, so I've been in Rotary. I've been very active with the chamber. I was the chamber chairwoman last year for McMinnville, Warren County. I've done youth leadership programs, adult leadership programs through that. And then we've sponsored a lot of different things and gotten out in the community. So
giving back.
Yeah, always.
And they give back to your business. There's been this weird retreat from public life. So that's kind of a millennial issue, but really just in general, people are not involved anymore. And I think that's been a big, boom for your business, but it makes you better at your job when you're in the public, right? And you're in a leadership position in these things too, right? I mean, you're actually having to make decisions for these organizations.
Yeah, and I think it's great because you're engaging with the community, but you're also surrounding yourself by other leaders in the community, so you can learn and grow from that. I've met so many people just being involved, just getting out there and doing stuff. And so it allows you to see other sides of things and just get different perspectives and grow yourself while you're helping others. And
you're always searching for those growth opportunities. Coming from Wells Fargo, and I've told you, that's one of the things that I've been really blessed with my military background, where I wasn't on active duty. I didn't have that full kind of corporate environment. Just the way things are structured, it's helped us be better leaders here. And so, let's dive into some of what you do. We know this because we're estate planners, obviously. People are searching for advisors now. Even with the advent of all this new technology and direct-to-consumer options, people need help right now. We're in an interesting time. Mm-hmm. What are some of the biggest just misconceptions? We can talk about the current market, but just in general, someone comes into you, maybe they've never had a financial advisor. Mm-hmm. They're either in retirement or they're a younger person building wealth. Some of the biggest misconceptions about wealth management.
Yeah, there's some different things. So I think a lot of times it's still, people think of us as stockbrokers and just day-to-day trading.
Warren Buffett. We're just
we're just trading. But really, we lead with planning. And so I think sometimes there's the misconception that you're just moving investments around all day long when really you're trying to figure out where people are now, where they want to get to. There's also, for people who already have accounts, they'll see the news and the market's moving and they're like, oh, my account's doing the same thing. And that's not true. A lot of times some of the indexes you see are made up of smaller amounts of investments, so the fluctuation's much different. Mm-hmm. So
than what they think it is.
Than what they think it is. So if they see something on the news and something's down, they're like, oh, my account's doing the same thing. And that's not necessarily true because they may be more diversified, more balanced. Their risk level may be completely different than what they're seeing. So there's always that side of it. And then a big one is people think they can't oversave. And so a lot of times you'll see people saving a lot of money, but they're not really living in the now because they want to make sure they're preparing correctly for retirement. And you can oversave. You want to have a balancing act with that,
And that's a breath of fresh air. I mean, I know some really good advisors that might not say that. It's just kind of like, no, we're going to save or they might not even think that, but they're not going to encourage that philosophy.
Yeah.
And you wake up one day and it's like, okay, I've got these beautiful IRAs and my lifestyle's not changed at all.
And you want to be able to do things. I mean, you've worked your whole life to get to retirement, and so part of that is, when can I retire and how can I live in retirement? But you want to be able to do the things that you can while you're young enough to do them. You don't want to necessarily maybe get to 90 and have these big accounts, but you didn't actually get to do anything.
So, is that an American thing? What is that?
I mean, I think so. I do.
We need that. We need the biggest ledger to win. Right.
Right.
It's just this never-ending game, and it is, and that's the thing about having an advisor is that we certainly benefit from. Everyone understands, well, not everybody, but the public thinks they understand how indices work and how the market works. And first of all, a lot of the times they don't. But it's these big decisions that you're keeping people from making because you're a neutral third party that's not under stress. How many calls have you gotten over the last few weeks that, hey, can we sell everything we've got and go into cash?
It's crazy. I have not received one.
Really?
So it is. Just there's been a lot of movement lately, and that does trouble people, especially if they're getting ready to go into retirement or they're already there or they maybe just retired. It's like, oh, wish I was still getting a paycheck now.
But we're even hearing that with our estate planning clients.
But we really haven't received a lot of calls. We try to be proactive with people to make sure, hey, how are you feeling? That type of thing. But also, when we originally set things up, we plan based on risk and timeline. And so we always try to look at things carefully and make sure, even if we have some of the pullback or the market movement, the accounts are set up in a way that the short-term money that people are going to need isn't really fluctuating the same.
Again, part of the onboarding process, you're taking some of that risk out. That having a 7 or 8 or even 10% drop in the market's not going to, in 2025, that should not impact someone's overall plan by and large.
Right. And you want to focus on the long term, which is always, it's kind of hard when you're seeing everything like this in front of you. I mean, we have access to news as soon as something happens. So it's hard, I think, to keep the long term in mind, but it's just reassuring and letting people know kind of where they are when things like this happen.
Yeah, that's a big part of the job. I'm curious to ask you a couple pointed questions about the market just to kind of get your general advice. I listen to a lot of mainstream, read a lot of the mainstream news, like the Wall Street Journal and those things. And every now and then I listen to some contrarian, perspectives on the market and things that are going on. There are economists that are very in love with tariffs and the things that are going on in the administration. Some are like, we are going to see a formal 2008 recession and all this. There are some, I think fund managers and things that are talking about that, like we've seen this S&P be the gold standard, right. Warren Buffett's advice that, if you're not a professional like yourself, if you just, went into that and let it go for 50 years. And that we may be going into a very different, world order with some of, the global markets and things like that. Do you think that some of the traditional investment advice, maybe that's worked since like 2000 to 2025, we might not see the same thing play out, like some of these large cap stocks and things like that? Or
I mean, I think it's still important to invest in quality.
Yeah.
And so I think right now it's quality and diversification. And then it's just seeing what sectors may be hit the most by the tariffs. And so you look at that and you can move some things around to kind of, you can't eliminate it, but you can always rebalance things to make sure it's set up so that you're not riding that full roller coaster of the areas that may hit the most.
Yeah, and what are some of those? Like, do you think like the NASDAQ and some of these, the technology, I mean, I wouldn't think tariffs would impact that, but I'm reading some of that. Do we think that those might be more exposed to a correction? Or
so technology's done so well when things get so high for so long. It's inevitable that there will be corrections along the way. So I mean, I think you'll see some things with tech, but as new AI and things like that come out, that's going to play in a role too.
Some disruption.
So yeah,
there might be some deflationary impacts with AI and things like that might impact some of the incumbents in the space. Yeah, it's an interesting time. When you're working with families about like legacy planning and generational planning, there's a lot of psychology there too. I actually was at a really interesting conference recently. They were talking about like disinheritance and kind of not passing on any wealth right until, if any, until after death. And then some of the things that we do where we spread out inheritance and things like that, depending on if clients want to do that. What are some of the conversations that you have to get people to understand and be more logical, and also to make sure that generational wealth planning for some of those clients that really have some significant wealth that's going to a generation that did not produce it, to make sure that goes well?
Yeah, so I think it's just finding out what the goal is. You can say, we often say, you can basically set it up where, your kids or future generations could inherit around this much, or you could have the last check bounce if that's what you want. So we try to find out what people want to do. And it's interesting. A lot of people really want to focus on grandchildren. And so it's finding out the best way to do that. And then always we rely on professionals like you to help with that estate planning. But we do sit down and we have a meeting basically on what do you think you want to do? Would you like to pass a portion of this on? How do you feel about doing that throughout your life while you're still alive? Or is that something that you just want to have set up and go into place? So we have those conversations, and then we just try to encourage people to plan for that, because if they do not plan, the state will decide. So the best thing they can do is just, have that in place.
Yeah, and CK, Pure Wealth Partners is so great because you're identifying some of these estate planning issues ahead of time. We work closely, with your firm and company in that, and we see that a lot too. Folks that want to plan and have some generational planning for grandchildren that may or may not have a more difficult time getting their foots on the socioeconomic ladder. There's so many ways to do that, and it might be it might be a combination of both, right? Where there's going to be a lot of lifetime gifting, but there's still going to be a pretty large principal amount. And for those that are listening, there's so many things you can do in working with Pure Wealth Partners, your advisor, and then our law firm, whether that is a sub-trust in your estate plan that's going to be opened up for each of those grandchildren when you pass away, and then for the trust to manage that wealth as they get older at certain ages, where your advisor would continue to be the manager, or are you just going to use a beneficiary designation and drive the lion's share of that wealth at death? They need to be thinking about that. And again, I think you're having those conversations when you're meeting with folks annually is, again, what's the plan?
Yeah,
it just ask that open-ended question.
So much of it is planning, and you're seeing, just with land values and things like that here, 10, 15 years ago, you may not have had to think about trust and those types of things, but now with the way that land values have increased in this area, it's something that you do have to think about and plan for now.
In the marketplace, there's so many different options, which is a good thing, I think, in our industry and your industry. What are some of the things that sets, well, first off, kind of define what an independent firm is. People are, we see Edward Jones, we see Raymond James, there's advisors and banks, there's independent firms out there, there's larger, obviously larger banks, Wells Fargo, those options out there. What sets your firm apart, and what makes, you guys, you think, offer a different level or a different type of service?
I think we try to tailor it to our clients. Being independent allows you to set up the business model that you want. And so, we try to be very careful as we meet with clients. We want one client in the office at the time. Retirement's a big stressor. A lot of people are very private about this type of thing. So we try to provide that level of privacy. We also, again, want to lead with planning. The investments are so important, but if you have investments with no plan, you're still confused. You don't really know what direction you're going.
Once again, yeah.
Yeah, and so we really focus on that. And then I think the other thing is just at the end of the day, like I want to have clients that want to work with me, that we want to work with, and we have that relationship where if you're not, if you're confused or you need to know something, like you're comfortable picking up the phone and calling, you're not worried about getting a 1-800 number or handed off or something like that. So it's really just about having a quality relationship with clients versus like worrying about numbers or having to hit certain levels. And
to be direct, there just might be less planning because, again, of those other directives and incentives there that are focused on, assets under management and those things. And you can really be selective and make sure the relationship is going both ways, and you get to work with people that want to work with you and vice versa. Yeah. One of the things I believe, you're just an amazing, business owner and advisor. Obviously you have a female-owned business, you're a female advisor, and one of the industry, the legal industry is almost reversed. There's almost more female lawyers now than male lawyers. That happened in the course of about 30 years.
Yeah.
In the wealth management business, it's not quite caught up. I think, I think a lot of people might like that, but what are some of the challenges you've had along the way?
Yeah, there are challenges. I think probably it's probably about 10% female at this point.
Yeah.
We definitely haven't caught up in that area. And you do face challenges, but at the same time, I feel like challenges bring opportunity. So for the most part, I think it's just when you're sitting in a room, it is different. They do have different classes for women advisors and things like that. But for the most part, sometimes, just working with women in this area is different for people, especially, it just depending on the generation. And so I think it's just like always focusing on the client and, making sure that they're comfortable and they're okay with working with a woman. My business partner, generally we do a lot of our appointments jointly,
together,
so it works out well.
Yeah, you kind of balance each other out there too, which is kind of how our business is set up. We're a husband-wife team, but it's we kind of, a lot of times we do joint meetings too. You have a background in sports, athletics, those things. I know you're a big runner. How, mental health and our spiritual health, our physical health, that sounds like, kind of woo-woo, and it's really not. I do the very best I can. I've got 2 kids and 1 on the way, and so sometimes the dad bod is, creeping in, and it's tough to fight back when your time is just slipped through your fingers. But how is your fitness and kind of, your exercise regimen and things make you a better practitioner?
So I played sports growing up, played in college for an NAIA school, but I just think that there's a certain level of like discipline and teamwork and resilience that you get from playing sports. So after college, I was just kind of like, oh, what now? Like so much of my time and energy had gone into that, and so I'm going to sound like Forrest Gump. I started running.
Yeah. Well, there's no other sports.
Yeah. So the goal was to do a marathon. And so I did one and I was like, oh, all right, well, let's do another one. And so I started doing them in different states and eventually decided I want to try to hit all 50 states.
But where are we in that?
So I'm at like 17, but I did one state. I did Maui and Oahu in Hawaii. So did that one twice. But It's going well. Some years are better than others. Running, it can be great. It can be awful. But it's kind of an escape. It's kind of therapy. It's it's just that time that you can reflect. I've never really ran in groups. It's always just kind of been that time for me.
It's been meditative, I guess.
And I think that's helped with like stress and mental health and things like that, because it just gives you that time to think through things, but you're also getting a little bit healthier along the way.
Yeah, I saw a quote there. I don't know where it was, on Facebook or X or whatever, but it was like, runners have a superpower, and they're absolute killers in everything that they, and usually in their space. And I think a lot of it is that after, I didn't play college sports, but after high school, that's one of the reasons why I joined the military and I joined a fraternity. I was looking for that community again. It's like, well, this sucks. When there's no sports anymore. And then after college, you really have to start putting that artificial pressure on yourself, because life's really easy nowadays, and to continue to stay sharp, you've got to put yourself under some type of physical stress. So when I noticed that you were in the marathon, I was like, well, that makes sense. That's how she's getting that resiliency on a weekly basis. 17 states.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're almost halfway.
Yeah.
What advice do you have to young people today that are coming into, maybe they have a background in finance, they've got their degree, they're interested in banking, wealth management, some of the things you've been in. Where would you say they should start?
I would see if they could, shadow or intern or something like that, and figure out if that's the direction, they want to go. Because a lot of times you think a job is something and then you do it and you're like, oh, it's not what I thought it was. So I would say, approach someone in the field. Some people may not, we deal with private information. So of course there's ways that you have to do it. And, some people may say no, but I think most people want to help. They want to see young people get started in a career that they're going to enjoy. So I would just say reach out to people in those professions and see if you can sit with them, mentor with them. You may not be able to do like appointments or anything like that, but you can at least see what the day-to-day is like.
There's so many examples of folks going to law school that never practice. They're ambitious people. They know they want to do something. They want to have some sense of success in their life, and they would have been so much better served had they gone out and done that and just seek mentorship. And I got all my internships and things. So I picked up the phone and calling. And I think young people today just need to know that that's a superpower. Just cold call and get in there, right? Yeah. Well, CK, thank you so much for coming down today. Pure Wealth Partners in McMinnville, Tennessee. Some of the best advisors around. And thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.